campers, I'm Lester. No, I am not a city, that's my name. If you're enjoying the music that you're hearing, that's good, because I was the one that made it. Check out my music on SoundCloud, if you feel like it. Shameless plug over. Without further delay, I'm here at gunpoint to introduce this week's Benny Shakes Things Up. Without further ado, here's Benny.
Except not Benny.
Yes, not Benny. There is a not Benny shaped hole today. So yes, Benny, I am filling in for Benny, but should I just call myself Benny just to really confuse people?
Yeah, I'll refer to you as Benny throughout the entire show. All right.
But you know what? I could be a total arsehole, but it's fine because I'm Benny. So
He can still hear you.
I know he can. He can remove me anytime, so I need to be really careful.
Oh, yeah, Andy has. Andy has. Hello. Welcome. By the way, hello, Internet. Just forgot.
Hi, Internet. Hello. We were talking about this before. That we do. Do you greet your computer when it starts up in the morning or evening? So
that's the way to get it to like you.
Yes, exactly. That's how we get people to like us. Hello, Internet, and people of the Internet. I'm Mark Birkwood, and here with me is Kate Lovelock.
Yeah, Kate. Yeah, hello, everybody.
Yeah.
Yes. Shall we introduce our guest, Mark? Shall we actually do a proper grown-up thing and introduce the guest?
I think we should be a bit grown up and professional about this. So yes, this week we have the wonderful Franklin Quinn. Hello, Franklin.
Hello. How's it going?
Hello. How are you?
How are you?
Tired. Fine though. Fine. Good. Yeah. I'll settle on good, I think.
And are you excited for lockdown being nearly over, or you've enjoyed lockdown?
I've enjoyed it, yeah. I've enjoyed having a break. I've been shielding, so I've been indoors for about a year now.
Okay.
It's been great. Bliss.
So really, you wanted the lockdown to be extended further, really?
As long as possible, for the rest of my life, if possible. Yeah.
Well, we'll get on the blower to Boris then and tell him just to. I mean, he'll probably end up extending it anyway.
If you're gonna give him a call, I got some other things for you to say to him too.
I think there's a list of things we need.
I think disabled people want to speak to Boris about a huge number of things.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would go on for at least a year, which is how long lockdown lasted. Remember to like, subscribe, and share, and donate to buy all the acts a drink. So
there is a nice QR code if you want.
There,
Mark there.
Yeah, it's there, right next to Franklin. So if you see Franklin, associate Franklin with money. That's how it works. So Franklin, I think the first sort of question I have for you is, how did you get into comedy? How was that for you?
So I started sleeping with a comedian, basically. Nice. He thought I was funnier than him. So that was it pretty much. He got me onto a local open mic and kept going from that point.
And was this in Cardiff? You're from Cardiff, aren't you?
It was, yeah. It was in Goody Who, which doesn't exist anymore because they've knocked it down recently.
Oh, that's a shame. And how was your first gig? Do you remember it?
Yeah, I was absolutely terrified. I think my knees shaked the entire time. But it went okay. No one left, as far as I could remember. But yeah.
And how do you feel it's been going with the comedy?
It's been up and down. I mean, as you probably know, like talking to disabled people quite often in comedy, it's a lot of gigs are often not accessible. It's hard to consistently be out there gigging. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know from London anyway, like the amount of gigs that are in basements, like down like a big sort of flight of stairs.
Yeah.
And so for everyone who has accessibility issues, it's like, I mean, I do have a night myself that I did have in a very accessible building, but the problem is the station next to the building wasn't wheelchair accessible. The venue itself was amazingly wheelchair accessible, but the actual train station wasn't. So it was a bit like, and our first headliner was someone in a wheelchair and Simmons, and it was just like, and that's what he said, by the way, Mark, did you know the train station right next to your venue is not wheelchair accessible? And I was like,
Yeah, you gotta do what you can, but yeah, it's
my local train station is not wheelchair accessible, but they did let the local special needs school paint the sideboard, so they actually can't get down to the station to see their lovely work, but they can they painted it for them, and they're like, this was painted by this school. I'm like, who can never see the stuff. That's solid.
That's nice though, employing some free disabled child labor.
Yeah, that's right. And it's so the school I work for, it was actually one of the summers. The kids did, because I work in a special needs school, and the kids did this. I think research into how many London Underground stations were inaccessible, and it turns out over half, which is quite shocking. Really, that's London. We're meant to have the most, updated transport system in the world almost.
Yeah,
but it's terrible. But yeah. So have you been during lockdown? Have you been doing sort of more online gigs? And do you find them more accessible if you have been doing them, Franklin?
I did. I've done one gig during the lockdown. Months ago. I'm really bad at sort of promoting myself and like scheduling myself into things as well, which doesn't help. But I've been primarily during the lockdown. I've been focusing on. I've started working with a local mutual aid. They do a bunch of different things. I've been like offering my services for helping people with their benefit applications and workplace disputes and stuff like that around disability. So I've been focusing more on that over the last year.
And you I was going to say, and you were saying about disability, had a message from Benny going, the first question we were supposed to ask you in the nicest possible way was, what is your disability, Franklin?
Sure. God, how long have you got? So I have PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. I also have Hashimoto's, which is an immune system disorder. I have as of yet, undefined joint disorder, which makes it hard for me to walk, which is why I'm an ambulatory wheelchair user. And I'm also autistic and probably have ADHD. So this is a lot going on. Keeps me busy.
And what are sort of the biggest barriers you find with all that, and like the way society is? Like, how does that does it put up a barrier for you, or do you find that actually people have been quite accommodating with you?
Sort of. I mean, some of them I generally don't have much of a problem with, like my autism and ADHD. I've like most of my friend group are also neurodivergent, so that typically hasn't been much of a problem. But for like my immune system disorder, I get really sick. Like every time I leave the house, I'm always have some kind of flu or some awful like couple of day lurgy that lasts for weeks. And that can make it hard with like keeping to schedules, especially. And eventually people stop asking, which is unfortunate, but it happens. It's mostly like using my wheelchair that's caused a lot of problems, because that really limits sort of where I'm able to go, like where I can meet up with people, what type of gigs I can do. That's been the primary issue, I think, is dealing with that.
Okay. So if you have any questions for Franklin or for me or Kate, please put them in the comments section below, and we will read them out. But yeah, so you say you work on sort of benefit application forms and things like that. I mean, that's really important work, especially during the lockdown as well. I imagine your caseload has increased, I imagine, over lockdown. Has it? Do you find that?
There's been a couple more people that I've had to like reach out to than normal. It's yeah, it's hard. It's difficult. It's been really hard seeing people, especially who like had never had to deal with stuff like that before, especially people who like now are dealing with the symptoms of long COVID, which are causing them to like experience like chronic illness that they've never experienced before. And it's been I wouldn't say that it's good and I've been enjoying it, but it's been like interesting seeing people who previously like had no idea when it came to the benefit system and like how bad it is in this country, suddenly having to go through that process themselves and seeing like just how hostile the entire process is. Yeah, it's been equally interesting and upsetting, I think. Sorry, I know this is supposed to be really lighthearted.
No,
that's fine. It's your night, so we totally just kind of go talk about what you want to talk about and what you need to talk about. So it's kind of really important.
And this is what this podcast is about. And so the charity that sponsors my night actually helps a lot with application forms for disabled. It's like an advocacy project. It's One Place East. It's for disabled adults, but they would very much agree with you in terms of the paperwork, and for especially people with LD, like learning disabilities. It's like 50 pages on, say, even if you had a lifelong condition, you sometimes have to fill it out every year, which can be really demeaning. I know when I was younger with my autism, the DLA application wasn't anywhere near as bad or rigorous. But then when I came off it, when I got more independent, I also noticed it was getting harder and harder for other people. If I was a child with autism now, or even an adult with autism now, that had to go through the process, I don't know if I could.
Yeah, it's a lot. I kind of it's not just having to fill in all of those forms as well. It's like they're looking for very specific wording for your award, and like a lot of people can't just put your head in that sort of like PR mindset to like accurately report your disability as much as possible. I know like for disabled people, our sort of impulse is to like downplay as much as possible, like try and not make us seem as vulnerable as we are. But that doesn't help when it comes to like filling in benefit forms. They want to hear you at your worst. And that's the only way that you're going to get help. Yeah.
But yeah, so this is One Place East. For those that are living in London, and especially East London and Redbridge, please go to their website if you need any sort of help with benefit applications and things like that, and any support you need if you know you're a disabled adult or adult with mental health conditions. One Place East do a lot of really important work, and the work you do, Franklin, is that for an organisation, a particular organisation?
Well, over the years, it's been sort of informally, because I'm just in a lot of different disabled and queer groups within the local area. But I very recently have started working with a local mutual aid who do this sort of work already. They've been doing it for a while, and I'm just sort of like lending extra support for that. So yeah, not anything in particular.
And who are they called, this mutual aid group? So if we wanted to say signpost people.
They are called, they have a lot of names, so you'll have to forgive me. I'll have to look.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. Don't take your time. It's fine.
It's the trans, non-binary and intersex mutual aid, Trans Aid Cymru. They've been doing some really good work over the lockdown, especially. Like they put together sort of like financial packages for. It's primarily run by disabled trans people, and a lot of their clientele as well are disabled trans people. They provide money for clothes or furniture. There's a clothes swap wardrobe for trans people, swapping their wardrobes around for the first time. So there's a lot of like trans women and trans men just like swapping their clothing. It's very useful. Yeah, they're great.
Oh, that sounds really good, actually. And to have an organisation like that, because I know obviously trans rights has been a lot in the news over the last few years, and it's been a big spotlight on that, and it's really important that organisations like that exist. But I just got a comment in here from Emma. Emma says, "Always record your PIP interview. It's your right." Yeah, I've heard that, because I think they can often trip you up, and then when you're in the appeals process, you've got that as a record, and it's something ridiculous. Like the majority of applications that get rejected get overturned in the appeals process.
Yeah.
My brother, because he's a job centre, but he's autistic, right? And he got sanctioned for 6 weeks because he missed his job centre interview because he had an actual interview, and he proved that he had an actual interview, and he told him about it before, but he didn't have any money for 6 weeks, and very luckily we were living with my mum. But without that, there's a lot of people that are not in that position that could find themselves.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, part of the reason I got to know so much about benefit applications is in 2017, my partner claims PIP and I claim carer's allowance for him. I don't claim PIP myself, but he was rejected. He got 0 points. He's very brittle type 1 diabetic with epilepsy. So every time he has a hypo, he also has a seizure. So he's hugely high risk, but they gave him 0 points. And then we had to go through an 18-month process with no income through 2 different tribunals to finally get the award. Yeah, it was a bad time. We were homeless at the time too. Like it was so bad. But yeah, I would absolutely advise always recording your PIP assessments. I don't think you can submit the recording itself as evidence, because you're technically not supposed to record during your PIP interview. But if you transcribe it, you can submit that as evidence for a tribunal if anything goes wrong. So it's worth knowing that. Yeah,
definitely. Kate, have you had any run-ins with like PIP, DLA, anything like that?
Sorry. Not personally in that sense, no. But yeah, it's really important that people know what they can and can't do and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a rough process. It can feel very humiliating, especially when you're talking to, like, a lot of PIP assessments aren't carried out by necessarily a medical professional who would be familiar with your condition. Like when my partner went for his PIP assessment, it was a pediatric nurse, I think, who was doing his PIP assessment, and he said exercise shouldn't affect your blood sugar.
That doesn't sound very medically.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's not a medical. I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because they're often like healthcare professionals, and they're not like it's. But yeah, a film I've always sort of watched was Daniel Blake, and it was like he had a heart attack, and like he couldn't go back to work, and they're like, "Can you lift your right arm?" And he went, "I had a heart attack. I didn't break my arm." But it's like, it's just there's some ridiculous questions they put you through. If we're international listeners, I'd be very interested to hear how your welfare checks work in your country. So if you have any sort of comments about comparisons between our country and yours, I'd very much like to hear it, because we have one of the harshest welfare systems in Europe, from what I've heard. But moving on from that, like, so with your sorry, my mum's spoiled my dinner. Thank you, Mum.
I'll ask a question while I do that, shall I, Mark? I was going to say, with your comedy, what sort of things do you talk about? Like, and do you feel particularly like that you like talking about those topics? Do you feel it's necessary? I don't know.
So, from the beginning, my stuff was like primarily about depression and anxiety, and I'm very like autobiographical, I guess, with a lot of my stuff, just by, I think, virtue of me wanting to talk about myself, I end up talking about like a lot of hard topics because I've had a strange life. But yeah, I talk a lot about sort of like suicide, and I talk about my abortion. I talk about like a lot of like hard stuff, and it's very hard to sort of win a crowd over with that sometimes, but I think I manage it okay generally.
But does that help? I think from what I've heard when people talk about subjects like that, do you find that helps you with that sort of process in terms of coming to terms with things that have happened? Like when you're talking about it on stage, is it almost like a release, or is it actually make it more difficult?
I think it's a combination of both. Like I've definitely had moments where like it's been nice to talk about difficult subjects because you get people speaking to you after the gig who will talk to you about their own experiences and how it related to them, and how it feels nice to like hear someone talking about something that they've gone through that they don't typically hear in like stand-up comedy. But there've definitely been moments where I've done material on stage and immediately after I've thought, I'm not ready to talk about that. And I just told 40 people my business. So it's a bit all over the place. I think one of the difficult things I found, so like most of the stand-up comedy I've done, I've only done one gig since transitioning. So most of it I did with like pigtails and like a big frilly dress and stuff, and it was very, very surreal, especially trying to talk to people about being a trans man and looking like that. Like it can make it's a bit of a disconnect for the audience that you have to sort of like walk them through. But yeah, as time goes on, like I started finding it more and more difficult writing about myself in any sort of depth, because I'm a very complicated person. Like I have a lot of stuff going on. Like I'm trans, I'm queer, I'm disabled. I've been homeless. Like I've experienced all these different things, and it's very hard to summarize a lot of it in a way that's like digestible for people. So yeah, I found it very therapeutic for the most part. A lot of it, the therapy is more in the sort of sitting down and writing and trying to figure out how to explain myself to people, which is something I've been doing my whole life in a way. Like, so yeah. I don't even know if that answered the question. I kind of went
No,
on.
I think
That's really good. My question was sort of, yes. It's that thing also of having that pressure to talk about yourself and going, do I want that pressure today? And sort of having that set that things in the stand-up, you're going, actually today I don't want to be that person. I don't want to talk about that in that way because I'm not feeling that is something I can talk about. And it's having that kind of pressure and kind of going, it's particularly, I don't know, particularly, would you say it's also particularly when you know that, say, a promoter is expecting that's a particular set, and it's that thing of, I know I've got to deliver that one because that's kind of what they put me on.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think when you're sort of like, you go up to do comedy, you know that the first thing you need to do is like address something about your appearance or who you are, to try and sort of like win the audience round to your side, so then it's easier for you to like deliver whatever jokes after that point. That was always really difficult to me because I'm like, I have to give so much context for any of my stories to make the slightest bit of sense. Like I can't really go up on stage looking like this with my shit mustache and be like, I had an abortion, by the way. Like, you know, like there's just like so much. It's really hard to balance between like just wanting to tell a story about your life and providing enough context for people to understand, and also introducing them to you and like ingratiating them to you. It's a very hard balancing act. But I've sort of casually been doing this, like trying to make friends throughout the years as an autistic person anyway, like making fun of myself. So yeah.
And do you find overall people have been receptive and supportive with you, or do you find that's a bit more of a challenge because of the complexity of your life, I guess.
I found that audiences are usually like really on board, especially because I think that it's different and it's interesting, so they want to hear. Like even if they don't particularly like you or care about you, there's enough there that they can just sort of like absorb. It's other comedians are often a barrier. Just just with how many different identities that I have, it's very hard sometimes going up on stage and talking about your disability, for example, and then the person after you getting up and making fun of your exact disabilities just as part of their regular set. Or it can be hard, but you've just got to ignore it if you can, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, the most interesting acts I've seen is acts that do talk about things like disability or things like their sexuality or things like, things they've been going through. And and for me, I've sort of veered towards that side. Like when I was younger, I was into the old type of stereotype kind of jokes, like we all are, dick jokes or whatever. But when I was younger, as older I've got though, actually, and the more I talk about myself on stage with the autism, it's like actually I tend to veer towards more acts like who have other disabilities or going through certain transitions because it makes for interesting like watching as well. Like it's not the same old tirade every time.
Yeah, for sure. Like I love a good edgy joke, but the problem with usually people who don't belong to these identities making those jokes is that they don't know what's funny about it. And that's like, I would rather get up and watch a trans person spend 20 minutes making fun of all of the silliness that is being a trans person than watch a person who isn't trans get up and tell like 3 or 4 of the same jokes that we've all heard before about what the trans experience is. It's just like, it doesn't hit in the way that it does when you hear it from someone who is a part of that themselves, for sure.
But yet there is that whole sort of self-deprecation side, and I have a real thing about comedians that sort of punch down. You either punch up or sideways. So like you punch yourself. That's fine though. Like it's that not literally punch yourself, although that could be quite an interesting act. I don't know if anyone wants to try that, and if anyone does try that, just I can think of maybe 1 or 2 acts, but no. No, I think you're right though. There's if you talk about your own experiences and you make fun of your own experiences, then I often find people find it easier to understand. And actually that's why I think benefits of comedy. I don't know if you agree, or Kate, like
I think it's telling you've got your microphone to tell your story and tell yourself about that, and that's what that's about. Is having the microphone. Also very strange when you go to a gig that doesn't have a microphone side actually, because you're like, oh, I'm just going to stand up here. But it's that thing of using that microphone to tell people about yourself in the most succinct way and go, look, this is me. And essentially comedy, I find, is very much going, look, we're all flawed human beings and this is us. And I think sometimes actually sometimes you have so many kind of beats that a lot of comedians hit, sort of, in whether it's, I'm going to be stereotypical now, whether it's a dating apps joke or that kind of thing, and all those kind of things that always hit. So when someone doesn't have those or addresses them in a completely different way, I think it's really, really good.
Yeah, refreshing.
Yeah.
And have you, Franklin, have you been on sort of many bills where there's sort of, say, it's not like an all trans bill, but it's like majority is, or do you find that often you're the, because I find this with the autism, I'm often the token disabled.
Yeah, generally most gigs that I do, I'm usually the only trans person, the only queer person, sometimes also the only disabled person. Like, it happens. But I set up my own comedy night a few years ago, Sensitive Comedy, that is just for queer people. So we were looking to move on to having, essentially what I wanted to do with it is having two different gigs running at the same time under the same name, where one is just for queer X and one is just for disabled X. Weirdly, as it happened, we've only been doing the queer ones so far, but something like 75% of the bill have also been disabled people. So it's just the crossover that happens, I guess. But yeah, that's been so refreshing. It's so weird having a comedy night that is like primarily trans people and the audience is primarily trans people. Like it's weird, especially like it makes me want to do different material as well, because I know that if I'm performing to like a primarily cis or non-trans audience, there's a lot of hand holding that I'm going to need to do. I can't just go and immediately jump into like what I find really funny about being a trans person, because it's like I need to establish like 4 or 5 different things before you even understand this to find it funny. But when you're performing to like, you've got an all trans bill performing to like mostly trans audience, it's just, I imagine if you had a non-trans person in the audience, it would be like we were speaking a different language. Like it's completely indecipherable, I'm sure. But yeah, it's great. Like I didn't realize how many like queer people are there just like wanting good comedy in the local scene, and they would not think to go to a regular comedy night because they don't know if they're gonna leave feeling like really personally wounded by the stuff that they see. I think there needs to be more spaces like that. Yeah, for sure.
And then if people wanted to say apply, was it sensitive comedy it's called?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So if people wanted to apply for that, if they were like maybe trans people that wanted to give comedy a go, how'd they go about applying for your night?
Yeah, so they can find us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is just sensitive comedy. We're not currently running any gigs because we were working up to initially we were putting together workshops as well as doing gigs. So for any sort of queer people who've thought about getting into stand-up comedy, we had like short workshops that we were doing leading up to their like first gig with us. So we're hoping to hopefully continue with that in the next couple of months, but we're not doing any gigs right now. But if anyone does want to reach out, yeah, it's just sensitive comedy on Twitter.
Brilliant. So did you think about maybe trying online, or is it you trying to avoid doing online gigs? Because I know that's where a lot of people...
Yeah, I'm like totally up for doing on like gigs. I think that like that will be something that we'd want to continue. If we started doing that, we'd want to continue that even past like post pandemic, post lockdown, whatever, because it's so much more accessible. It's been very hard. We've always wanted to like make sure that any venue we have is like fully accessible, because we know that we regularly, when we were running the in-person gigs, we would usually have at least 3 or 4 people who are wheelchair users in the audience. So yeah, we for sure we're going to end up doing online stuff eventually. We just haven't got our shit together currently. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a few comments here I'm going to bring up. Firstly, Benny said if you need any advice on disability, it's scope.org, advice and support for anyone in the UK struggling at the moment. Scope are very good. And Emma Sullivan has brought up about recording your PIP assessment, information about that. That was reference Emma's reference, the other Emma's reference earlier about recording PIP assessment. And there is another night. Benny, do I bring this up? Is that why you posted it? Yeah, it's called Subjective Silhouettes, and it's a really good. It's a queer comedy group. I would definitely check these out, Franklin, and anyone who fits under sort of the queer or LGBT category. Subjective Silhouettes. I know the people who run it; they're absolutely lovely. And I took part in, I think Benny did this as well. I took part in something called Queer Master, where it was Taskmaster, but it was hosted by Subjective Silhouettes. And it was like one of the activities was to put on makeup in as quick time as possible or something. And it was that sort of, but there's also an activity, fit as many things as you can in your socks. And it was often a lot of people had like socks that were like this big, like stockings and stuff like that. But it was really good fun. Subjective Silhouettes, I definitely check them out, Franklin, and anyone else.
Yeah, I'll have a look.
We're really supportive queer comedy group. But yeah, so Kate, do you have any other questions?
I do have a question that I'm constantly forgetting that I need to ask. We're going to ask it.
Yeah,
If you were president for the day, what would you do? I say president, prime minister, most whatever country structure of like highest level of political authority, president, prime minister, whatever you want to call it, for a day, what would you do?
Are you allowed to abolish the UK when you're prime minister?
To be fair, I think we're kind of self-abolishing ourselves at the moment.
It's taking a while.
God, I don't know. Where would you start, right? Completely overhaul our political system, establish
Burn it all down.
UBI, burn it all down. Yeah, why not? Abolish the monarchy.
UBI, Universal Basic Income, is something I've been in favour of for a long time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's yeah. Do you want to explain what it is, Franklin? I'm obviously explaining things. UBI. So for you,
it's essentially providing everyone with a sort of, as it sounds, a basic income to ensure that your basic needs are met, and then anything you earn is just a bonus on top of that. It's just providing everyone with the sort of like the bare necessities, so no one needs to die in poverty. Seems like a no-brainer, but yeah.
Yeah, I've heard about that being touted around. It's a really good idea. And I think the idea is you get rid of sort of the benefit system and everyone earns a set amount, like be like $1,500 a month or something. And actually, if you remove all the bureaucracy of all these universal credit and stuff like that, it would actually ensure people. It is a no-brainer, really, making sure people have the basic necessities to live. We can afford it. We're one of the richest countries in the world. But they don't want to give us free money, even though they give it to their friends. But yeah.
Yeah. But then how much will they be willing to allow you to provide that sort of support for people under capitalism? I mean, you could always end up with a situation where everything is then made slightly too expensive beyond the UBI line.
So you still have to do a lot of work to get to. Yeah.
Everything maybe things would get more expensive. I know they've trialled it in certain parts of certain countries and certain Scandinavian countries, I believe, and it seems to have worked out. So I don't know. I mean, well, especially with like COVID, people have been receiving certain payments similar anyway, like flat rate checks and things like that. Or I know my aunt and uncle had a business, little tea shop in Norfolk, and they got like a 10 grand grant from the government just to keep their business going. So I think we can do it, but it's just whether you have the will to do it. What else would you do if you were president, prime minister, power of all? If you controlled everything, what else would you do?
I don't know. I'm an anarcho-communist. I'm putting it out there. So this is probably a bad question for me.
Just think of that Monty Python scene, we employ an executive officer once a week. Have you seen the Holy Grail?
I think we should return to a political system where there's a lottery and one person is chosen every day to be prime minister. We'll just do it that way instead.
But what if the same person keeps getting drawn in the lottery over and over?
They get their name removed from the hat, as it were. Once you've had your name in the hat, you've done. Your day is gone.
We'll just trebuchet them into the sea. It's fine. We don't have to worry about them then.
Okay, so
that's not an official policy as prime minister, by the way.
Well, yeah. Okay, so we've got anarcho-communism, we've got universal basic income. I think this would. I think these are ideas. Do
you want to do Jamie Gaming?
I don't. Okay, yeah. So that's what we'll move on to now.
Moving on.
Moving on, because honestly, don't get me started on politics. I'll go on all night.
Me too.
Yeah, God, yeah. Let's talk after. But yeah, so this game is called Jamie's Game. It's on Below the Belt, another Benny Shakes production, and in it you have to try and depict some symbols from an AAC user called Jamie, and he posts symbols with words underneath, but we're not going to show you the words, and you have to guess what the symbols mean.
You have to. So it's a phrase or a sentence or
A
something.
phrase or a sentence or a word. So shall we bring up the first one?
Is that Silence of the Lambs?
Yes! Wow.
Brilliant! I think that's a record for the quickest anyone's got that. Silence of the Lambs.
Anyone has got that first time. That's brilliant. No one has got that. I've struggled and I've been like guessing 3 or 4 times. What? Because I take these very literally. I look at the literal symbols. But yeah, Silence of the Lambs. Have we got another one, Benny? Was that the
No.
I think Benny was expecting to take your time over that. So,
So sorry.
I know what that is.
damn you for being clever, Franklin. Like next time, just see, this is Benny. This is what happens when you ask an autistic person to decipher symbols. We'll do it. Okay, so
My one skill. I'm sorry.
It's the one skill you have. We need to get you on Below the Belt. I think you'll just rinse everybody. Just absolutely, you'll be on top. Yeah. So, was there any more sort of? This is the thing, right? I don't have any sort of pre-prepared questions. Kate, do you have any more pre-prepared?
I have my big journalistic question.
Oh yes,
I ask every single time. It's the most important journalistic question that you will be asked ever. I'm going to say ever. What is your favourite biscuit?
Custard creams, like easily.
I like that. You didn't even have to think about that. You're like, I just know this.
Easily.
I've got this.
Why custard creams?
I have no idea. It's pretty much one of the only biscuits I eat. Like, you can get those like massive ones.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I've seen those.
Obsessed. If I could just eat that for the rest of my life, I happily.
The one food you could eat with custard creams.
Yeah, I dream of a future where every morning a giant custard cream comes down the kitchen chute, and that's your sustenance for the day. That's it. That's all I need.
And literally, your mouth is just open like that, and it's just like
just
like a cartoon.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So yeah, custard cream. So, but do you dip it in tea or do you have it on your own?
I like to vary my custard cream intake. I'll sometimes have it with some tea, yes, or dip it in a can of Monster.
What?
How do you get? Sorry, I'm just thinking about the.
Just like it falls in it. What happens?
You have to pour the can out first, presumably, and then dip.
Pour it
and
first.
then dip it. Yeah,
I was genuinely just imagining you trying to get a tiny custard cream into the tiny can.
And then you having to go to A&E explaining what you did. Sorry, I was dipping my custard cream into a can of Monster.
What's happening there? Well,
I degloved myself pouring a custard cream into a can of Monster.
Would that not just dissolve instantly? Like,
yeah, it's horrible. And delicious.
Wow. Custard cream. Wow, that is. I don't think we've heard about that answer. Dipping your custard cream into Monster. Is there anyone
energy drink? Yeah.
Is there anyone else out there that does this? I really want to know. There must be like a group or something.
Where are my people?
Where are your people? Yeah, Franklin's people. You're the ones that will then be in charge. Everyone will have to eat custard cream Monsters whilst getting their universal basic income.
I'm now starting to imagine it a bit like you'd have a bowl of soup, but you'd have a bowl of Monster and then just like custard cream croutons sitting there going like
a cereal. Yeah.
Yeah, cereal.
Yeah.
Make that happen. People in charge of custard creams and Monster, make that happen. That's all.
Yeah, seriously. That's what we got to do. We've got to write a letter to Monster and to. Is it McVitie's?
I think you can get custard creams in various different, like companies. It's yeah, but yes, it'd be like that time Weetabix said you could put baked beans on top of them.
Sorry.
This went around the internet. Sorry if you haven't seen.
No, whoa.
Slightly derail this. That they made a suggestion that you could put baked beans on top of a Weetabix, and Twitter slightly went a bit strange because all the companies, like every single company, had an opinion on this, like from like all the different companies. So like you're talking like KFC. I think Network Rail apologized and said, sorry, we're going to have a late running of the thing because we're just so disgusted by this.
So was it a genuine suggestion from
I
Weetabix?
think it was like a joke suggestion. I think it was like a joke suggestion, but it didn't happen on the 1st of April. So I think everyone was just very confused.
Baked beans. Oh, yeah. Do you know,
Not like with milk. You just eat the baked beans on top of the. Yeah.
Do you heat it
Sorry.
up? Like,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to the question. Sorry.
oh
Sorry,
my
derailing
God.
the topic. With
I would rather custard creams and Monster actually doesn't sound too bad because at least they're two sweet things and they're two things that have both got sugar in it. Whereas Weetabix, I guess baked beans technically have sugar if you think of the tomato ketchup they mix with it. No.
Yeah, I put that example in to make the Monster and custard cream thing sound good. That's what that was. That was about providing context.
Yeah, I mean, it's good PR for the Monster custard creamers out there.
Yeah, Monster custard creamers. I think we're giving Weetabix a bad rap. So Benny, you're gonna get complaints from Weetabix.
Oh,
Kate's put you in it.
Sorry. I think we're allowed to mention like products. We're just not allowed to sing about them. I think
sing about. We're not allowed
to do so. Singing copyrighted material is not. It gets a strike.
We can make up a song about Monster custard creams. There's nothing stopping us. So if anyone's musical, please suggest some songs we can sing about.
Let's just do it.
Let's just wing it, you know. Let's turn this into a musical episode.
No,
I can't sing. You don't want to.
No, I was going to say I'm not a singer either, so this would be a really bad idea.
Bad idea. We would lose all our viewers. I love Benny's like little cues. No. They're not. Yes. I was going to be more polite and go social cues because he knows what I'm like, and it's not for you, Kate, and it's not for you, Franklin. It's for me. It's
okay. I was genuinely thinking like now. Say things. Sorry.
Chaos.
Okay. So shall we? Well, I guess I'll. Kate, do you want to promote anything you've got coming up?
Yes. On Monday I am doing this Inspired to Laugh. Thank you very much. I didn't even know what time it was. How awful is that? How awful. It's on 7:30. 7:30. Tickets available if you go to Inspired to Laugh Comedy in association with Benny Shakes. Please go. And I can see at the top of the list that's also got my name. I think, Mark, you are also doing this.
Yes, I am also.
So
there is that is happening, and I think obviously Alex Lee does a lot of work with Benny. So when's the next Awkward Question Times? Yeah, Awkward Question Times is every Sunday night at 8:30. So please check that out. Have you been on it, Kate?
Yeah, I've been on it. That was such an unflattering facial look. Going, yeah, no, I've been on it. It's great. It's good.
Yeah, definitely check out Awkward Question Times. And I am doing a autism awareness gig on the with the wonderful Fern Brady headlining. That'll be on the 23rd of April. Franklin, I'd definitely love to get you on Laugh Able at some point. It's such a lovely night.
It is a lovely night. I will go along with that.
Yeah, it's great.
It's very good. And you know, talking earlier about how you have a lot of people with two trans who are sort of disabled. I get a lot of sort of disabled comedians who are trans. We have actually, do you know what? We have a lot of LGBT performers at Laugh Able as well, because there's lots of sort of, for some reason lots of crossover, I guess. But that's going to be a really wonderful night. Please check that out. Go to Eventbrite, search Laugh Able Facebook page. But yeah,
I'm just banging your drum for you there, and that does actually sell out sometimes. So do get your tickets nice and early, doesn't it?
Yes, it'll be on the 23rd of April at 7:30. But yeah, definitely, because it does sell out. And we've had Rosie Jones headlining there, which has been amazing. We've had
lots of really good
headliners. Benny's headlined it. Kate's performed on it. It's an absolutely lovely night. So please get your tickets, because they will sell out. But yeah, so Franklin, is there any projects you're working on that you'd like to plug?
Not particularly. I'm not really working on much right now. I mean, I've been working with Mutual Aid, the Trans Aid Cymru. I have Sensitive Comedy, which will be coming back at some point in the near future, hopefully, when we get our stuff together. Follow me on Twitter if you want. Wouldn't recommend it, but you can. At Sharty the Clown.
What is it called? It's
Sharty the Clown.
Sharky the Clown, or
SHARTI.
Sharty the Clown. Yeah. Love it. That's a great Twitter handle.
So bad. It deters people. I let them know what I'm about right up front. But yeah, that's pretty much it, really.
And is there any content of yours that if people watch, is there any YouTube, or you don't?
We have some videos from Sensitive Comedy up on YouTube from our gigs pre-pandemic, and we'll hopefully be uploading more to that once we start doing online gigs. So
fantastic. And please remember to, I'll get this right, donate below. I don't want to point at you, Franklin, because I feel really donate. You can use your QR code. Please like, subscribe, and share. And this will be on YouTube, Facebook, whatever.
And also, if you don't want to give £5, you can equally go to PayPal. Search Benny Shakes on PayPal. I think it's on the bottom as well.
Yeah, and donate what you want, anything. Yeah. So I think I think we've because I think the reason Benny was promote yourself, Mark, because he was Mark's gonna run over. For someone autistic, I have a really bad sense of timing. So my timekeeping is terrible. But yeah, is there any last thoughts on this? On anything? Any questions? Oh, Jamie congratulated you, Franklin, on this is Jamie Priest. He's the one that comes up with the AAC games. So that's just him congratulating you on getting it for the first time. Again, you're the only person I think we know that's done that.
No one, you didn't even need to think. You're like, yeah, that's what that is.
Yes, that's it. You know.
Thank you, and also I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for making it easy. Right, Jamie. Right, your task is to come up with an incredibly hard one for Franklin. So, but yeah. So I think.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all very much for listening.
And thank you very much, Franklin, for being on.
Thank you, Franklin. It's been an absolute delight. And please check out Benny Shakes for more content. So it's goodbye from me.
Bye. Goodbye, Internet.
Goodbye, Internet.
Bye.
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 Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid that's all we have time for tonight from Benny and the gang. Please remember to subscribe and click on the bell for more notifications on the next instalment of Benny Shakes Things Up. If you want to support the podcast, or you like the jingle from Leicester in Nottingham, please click on the links below. Adios, amigos.